You see a smile on my face again because I'm back in the happiest place in the world. We've been off for a month. My family went to Utah for the last month. Up in July, we went up to Park City, and it was absolutely phenomenal. Got a chance to spend some time with Mr. Roy Tuscany. I'm wearing his shirt. If you're listening on Apple, it is a High Fives Foundation shirt. He helps spinal cord injury victims to be able to, well, I say victim, but people who have experienced them to experience extreme sports. The guy is absolutely phenomenal. And his nonprofit, get this, it runs on 19% of the money that's raised. The guy is an absolute phenomenon. But let's get to the real reason why the smile is on my face. Number one, I'm in the studio, but number two, I've been chasing this man that you're going to meet for probably about 3.5 years. I had a friend that told me, you need to meet DEZ Customz. Do you know DEZ Customz? And I was like, of course, everyone in the world knows one of the baddest sneaker and street artists in the world. But I didn't know him personally. And they said, well, he's a buddy of mine. You guys need to connect. And we've been going back and forth on social media, trying to connect and trying to get our schedules together. And today is that day. It's unbelievable to be able to see this guy's work. I posted on my Instagram. If you haven't seen it, go. You need to check out DEZ Customz on Instagram. You need to check it out online. Honestly, one of the premier, not only sneaker artists, but he works with canvas and murals and things like that. But a guy after my own heart because he has hip hop at the base of it. You know, he grew up in the same timeline. He is a Washington Commanders fan, but I'll forgive him for that. But it is my honor and pleasure to bring you. Don't call me David. You better call me DEZ. DEZ Customz on the show. Let's get this party started.
Nothing more on my mind. I got two shines, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make no mistake, we continue to win. Defeat never known, cause I will not lose. They wanna mimic my moves, but can't walk in my shoes.
The man, the myth, the legend, the man who works with Adidas, Under Armour, MLB, NFL, NBA, NHL. He doesn't even have it listed because there's so many companies that he's working with. One of the most sought after sneaker artists on the planet. Welcome to the show, Mr. DEZ Customz. Can I call you David at some point? Because I want to be your boy from back in the day.
You know, yeah, but it's funny, man. So I got a story. My mom hated DEZ. She literally, like, she would, people, they would call me that in the house. They come see me. I have a cookout or something. It'd be the team or whatever. It's DEZ. And she pulled me aside. I don't know who this DEZ is. I know David. My son is David, but I guess now he's DEZ. That guy is somebody, I don't know. And she would literally give me the hardest time about it. But yeah, so either way, man, I'm good. I feel like my parents are talking to me when with David.
So DEZ, help me to understand this. A red line, Beat Street, NFL, NBA, NHL, Adidas, Under Armour. How do all those things happen?
God, man. Honestly, I don't. I'm not a God pusher. If you believe, you believe. You don't. That's everybody's entitled, right? But it's too much left up to chance if you don't give credit somewhere, right? My mom raised me. I would go see my dad in Silver Spring. So from Arlington to Silver Spring, you're on the red line, and I'm seeing just these masterpieces every time. I'm taking a trip to go see my dad. And then I catch the movie Beat Street, and it was like the most incredible thing to me that this guy was, he was bucking the system and he was putting his art wherever he could and so on and so forth. And so, my mom was the first person that ever put an airbrush in my hand, and she actually did it. I don't know how much time we have, and I'm sure you're going to edit this, but I got to tell the story because especially, you know, she just passed 2 months ago, and she was the first person to put an airbrush in my hand, and the reason she did it is because nobody laughs at her son. So we went to the beach in Florida, and I had drawn with a marker on the back of my shirt, and we're on the boardwalk in Florida, I forgot where, and we get to this airbrush station, and I'm like, look, Mom, look, I was a little kid, and I'm like, look, Mom, look, you know, he draws on shirts like I do. And people chuckled. And, you know, in my young mind, I'm naive, you know, I'm thinking, oh, they're chuckling because they see a similarity. They're chuckling for my enthusiasm, whatever. What I didn't realize is if you draw on marker with a shirt, on a shirt with marker in the Florida sun and you're sweating like a chubby little Hispanic kid will, it's going to all bleed down your back. So the people weren't laughing with me, they were laughing at me. And I didn't know this until I got home. And I get home back to where we were staying, and I take off the shirt and I start bawling because that's the moment that I realized that these people were laughing at me. And so we just come back from vacation, and 2 weeks later, it must have been her next check. My mom puts an airbrush in my hand and a little bit of paint, and she was like, "Now you paint like they paint." And so that was the beginning of DEZ Customz all those years ago. I never thought it would be, but without that moment, I'm not here. So yeah, you know, it's you know, everything after that, you know, I made a little bit of money in high school airbrushing shirts, and I airbrushed cars. I was painting cars before I was painting anything else. My father's body shop taught me that. And then you know, it's just, you go through the timeline, and here I am, and it's just a series of events that happen, and again, man, just if you go through all the lucky moments, it's too many to count for me to be here without there being a higher power.
So after she put the airbrush in your hand, what was the next lucky moment for DEZ?
So I painted some motorcycles and some cars at my dad's shop, and that kind of got the name out there in my early 20s. I started doing artwork, so people started to see, okay, this kid's all right, you know, this kid. But at that time, there was a company called Gary Best and a couple of other places in Maryland that had a lock on the market, you know, so I couldn't break into that, and anyway, so there were a lot of lean times. You know, I had 3 failed businesses. I got evicted with my family 3 times in 3 years trying to start a business in the middle of a housing crisis that I was so ignorant to that I didn't know it existed because I was an apartment dweller. So I didn't, you know, I was like, what are you talking about, you know? And so then I had resigned myself to just, I'm going to be a worker, and art's going to be my hobby, and I'm always going to stay lean in it, and I love it, but I'm going to be a worker. And this kid comes to me and goes, hey, do you paint shoes? And I had done it before, and I'm like, yeah, man, I paint shoes. Now, mind you, I'm 36 now, and I've gone through a life of believing that I was an artist, but not being able to make a living at it. And we team up, and I start doing shoes for him, and he puts me on the map. A year later, I win the Ace of Customs contest. That was it, man. I told my job, I said I need 2 weeks off because I was going to, I had been burning it at both ends, working full-time and painting full-time. And then after the Ace of Customs contest, it blew up, and I had to make a decision, and I never went back to work. Like I had 2 weeks to decide, and I just never went back to work. Fortunately, my old boss and I are still good friends, so we're cool. But yeah, that was it. That was really the moment that shoes gave me a way to make money at art, being an artist first and a shoe guy second, and then that the shoe work gave me the ability to showcase my artistic talent, which has now led to more of my canvases selling, mural work with corporations and businesses and things like that. So that basically was a long time from at 12 years old getting an airbrush to 36 years old getting an opportunity to start doing artwork full time to basically a little after I was 36 years old walking away from work, starting my own business, and 12 years later here I am, you know, and thankful every day.
So you're a 36-year overnight success.
Yeah, correct. Correct. Exactly.
Take us to the Ace of Customz part and explain this the sneaker culture. If you look up behind me, Des, actually on this side, this was a shoe that changed my life, right? So the Jordan 4, they call them the Breads now, but we just called them the black. I mean, they were the black Jordan 4s when they came out.
Right.
And my parents didn't have enough money. My dad made $1,100 a month before taxes. We lived 40 miles away from our high school. I sound like an old grandpa. It was uphill both ways in the snow, no shoes, all the things. But making $1,100 before taxes, and he was the only income, me and my brother wanted those shoes, and they were the first $125 shoes, and my parents saved up enough to buy us both a pair in 1 month. And this really changed for us, walking into a place. This is where sneakers for me really, shifted. Help the people that are listening right now to understand what what that Ace competition or what that side of it really means and what it is for the person who is maybe not into sneakers as much.
So first of all, that shoe behind you was the first pair of Jordans I ever owned, and my little brother bought them for me. My little brother was 18. I was 26. Anyways, regardless how old I was, he bought them for me, and it was the first pair I'd ever owned. As a kid, I never had them, couldn't afford them. Single mom, it wasn't happening. So it was into my 20s that I got my first pair, and that was the first pair I ever got. It was my little brother that got them for me. But yeah, so Ace of Customz was the first ever one. So we get called in, and again, I'm thankful, Danny, the kid that got me started. He's not a kid anymore. We're all grown-ups now. But he got me the notoriety I needed to. I got invited out by Will at Ace of Customz. It was the first ever custom competition that was going to be done live during a sneaker con. It was a sneaker con New York. They decided to debut it. I was alongside two incredible artists in their own right, and it was a live competition. You do it through the duration of SneakerCon. They announced the winner at the end. It's on YouTube if you want to go watch it. And that put me on the map. Like, winning that kind of gave me the kind of the exclamation mark on what we were already doing. And it put me in the forefront, and it kind of helped me catapult the rest.
When you growing up and you're starting to airbrush, you're starting to do your art, your mom is saying, nobody laughs at my son, nobody's going to laugh at him. At that time, doing art on sneakers was probably not your first thought in your head of how this thing was going to go down. Did you think that you were going to continue on with the motorcycle, with the car, with the airbrushing on that part and painting cars? Did you think that that was going to be the most viable for you and to be able to work through?
Yes, that's exactly right. Furthest thing from my mind was shoes. I was going to be either a canvas. I was in order: automotive / motorcycle, canvas / muralist, or body shop owner like my dad. That was the trajectory of my life as far as I thought would happen. And none of those things happened, and it became shoes. And I'm fortunate because it was right time, right place. The way Danny found me was I had done a bunch of graffiti in the audio shop that fixed his speakers that were busted, and he was like, "Yo, who did this? Does he airbrush?" And again, like I said, man, if you take this series of circumstances and chances that had to go right for me to be here, it's like mathematically, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. It really doesn't.
So the comparison between like street art or graffiti and skateboarding, I see so many parallels because skateboarding is the only. We just had Ruby Lilly, who's up at the Paris Olympics right now. So she's skating there. She's a 17-year-old girl, one of 3 on the park team for the Team USA. She was just on the show and we were talking about it. Skateboarding is the only sport that's illegal like it's illegal to do and to play. And so until they started having parks, that was legal. But most of the time you're getting run out. That's not the case in basketball, football, baseball, all these things. Your art form is something that borders and for a long time was just illegal. How did you how did you get through, and as opposed to going that side of like, hey, I'm going to show you, I'm going to stick it to the man, and you turned it into something, one of the most positives that I've ever seen in that world. How did you make that conscious decision?
It was made for me. So two things. Number one, I bombed publicly maybe 3 times in my life. One time I got run out of the area by a crew, and I was like, I'm never going back there. And it, because I was by myself. None of my friends had interest in spray painting. So I was by myself. So it wasn't like I was part of a crew, and I got run out of there, and I was like, so that's a no. I can't go back there anymore because they'll beat the hell out of me, and I'm not trying to go through that. Then the other part of it was my mom, single mom. I'm trying not to be that kid, that really tortures my mom. So she's like, look, if you get locked up, you're staying. Like, I don't have the money to get you out, and I'm not going to help you, and I'm not getting you a lawyer. So you're going to have to figure it out. And I'm like, and I was a pretty good kid. I was a pretty well-behaved kid, played football in high school, got enough grades so that I could keep playing football. So I'm like, all right, maybe this isn't for me. And then my dad, one of the coolest things, to get me out of his hair, because he, we have our differences of how nurturing he was. But in the times that I would be there, he would be like, look, just go spray paint the back of the garage. So I was like, I can spray paint there? And he goes, as much as you want. So I had the ability to kind of just hone my craft there at a young age and be safe and I never felt the need that I needed to get up anywhere. For me, it was the love of what I was doing, not the love of being known. So, and then and the airbrushing was safer, easier. I could do it in my own room, and it was making me money. So the decision was pretty much kind of almost commonsensical. It was like, all right, this costs less. It could cost me less in the long run, and it makes me money. Like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this and not that. So,
take me to the Ace of Customz. You win, right? Tell me the next lucky break once that happens, because you're so humble, and you were like, then it kind of took off from there. But I mean, it took off like a rocket ship. But what was the first, what was that first next little lucky break?
So, again, series of events, right? I did, because I was on my own then. I did shoes for London Fletcher, the last pair he ever wore. And that was through a high school buddy of mine, Prince. So through Prince, he knows London Fletcher. So I was starstruck when I met him, by the way. When I went to hand them off, it was dinner. And I was like, my wife had to be like, say hi, dummy. And I'm like, okay. And he dapped me up, and it was like hugging a brick. Like, I realized then, like, the difference between humans and football players. Because when he dapped me up, I was like, oh, you're a brick with skin on top of brick. Got it. So from him, we got D'Angelo Hall. And then I team up with Creative Custom Kicks, Muhammad Ghaffar, my buddy. And on Twitter, people are hitting me up like, yo, Steve Smith's talking about you. This was Steve Smith first came back to the Ravens. He hit up on Twitter, D'Angelo Hall, and was like, yo, I need your guy to get me right. I know he's local. And everybody, when my friends, I'm not on Twitter. So I'm like, what are you talking? He's like, they're talking about you. I'm like, how are they talking about me? I'm not on Twitter. They're like, bruh, they're talking about you do his shoes, and Steve Smith wants you to do his shoes. So then we did Steve Smith's shoes. Steve Smith calls me, by the way, and I'm like, ha ha, right. I almost hung up on him. And then he was like, I was like, oh, okay, this really is you. I'm sorry. We did his shoes for the game when he went back to Carolina, and he's wearing Under Armour at the time, and he blows up. I think he got him for like 2 touchdowns and 183 yards, and I mean just spanked him single-handedly, um, and so at the time the person in charge is livid, and Kendall Ogle, which was the director of football marketing at the time, is like, let's take a different approach. Let's not cease and desist this kid like Nike's doing, because that's when Nike was dropping cease and desist on all kinds of customizers, right? And so Kendall Ogle goes, no, I'm gonna call this kid. He goes, let's team up with it. I mean, our product is not spanking out there. Our product is not getting highlighted out there. Let's take a different approach. Let's work with this kid. Let's see what we can do. So the following year, and so again, I get a call from Kendall Ogle. I'm thinking it's a joke, right? He said, hey, this is Kendall Ogle, Under Armour director of football. I'm like, ha ha, funny guys. You guys are hilarious. He goes, do me a favor. Write this number down. So I write, he gives me a 4-digit extension. He goes, call the number that you see on your caller ID, ask for that extension, we'll talk then, hangs up on me. And I'm like, oh shit. So I'm sorry. And so I call it back, and it's, Under Armour headquarters, blah, 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 and I give him the extension, and he picks up the phone, and he goes, can we have a conversation now? And I'm like, oh my God. And that was the beginning of the relationship with Under Armour. Like we had a conversation with them, and we actually didn't start with them, but that got us into the building, and we actually started with Jamie Gabeo, who was a big shot in the running team, and God bless her, man. She gave us our first ever try. She sent us, and the way she introduced Under Armour to us, I mean, she sent us like 2 monster boxes of product, and was like, this is how much I want to work with you guys. And we had never been treated like that before. Nobody had done that, and we were like, what is this? And so then we did a couple of run projects first, and then the football season started, and then we get with football, and after that, we're doing the combines with them, and again, just a series of events that I'm like, this is really, really cool. And then we were doing a bunch of their shoes we were getting contracts yearly as independent contractors, and we would get like a clothes stipend. To this day, my closet is Under Armour down. To this day, from the stuff that I got 4, 5, 6 years ago, because Under Armour stuff never breaks down. Like you could wear it 150 years, and then whatever I had in sweats, I cut them into shorts and keep it moving. So that started the relationship with them, and once you have that, and we started doing all of their departments like golf, and we done stuff for Jordan Speed, and then basketball, and so once you get that on your resume, it's easy for other companies when they start trying to get on the boat, and they're like, well, why should we use you? And you're like, well, ask them why you should use us. It's because we don't drop the ball. It's because we always come through. It's because our name rings true out here, and you can test it, call anybody, and they'll tell you that there's not ever a time where we miss a deadline or not hit the mark, and we take pride in that. Like we take pride in it. We stuck to that model of just giving great art. You rarely see where we ever did like a Louis Vuitton print or Supreme print or anything like that. We really try to stay in the artistic lane and develop that and develop these corporate relationships. And it's a reason why, man, if you go back to my old pictures, this is dark and short. And now is gray and long, and my eyebrows are turning gray, and I've been in the business throughout this whole time. So, I love what I do. It's not without its hardships, but it's the most rewarding thing that I think my life could have ever turned into. My son's 15, and for the majority of his life, for 12 years of his life, when things have started to make sense in his life, he's seen his father work hard at something he's passionate about, and succeed at it. And I take great pride in that. And like I said, my mom passed away 2 months ago and she saw her son win at what she was the first person that ever believed in me, that believed in my artistic talent, um, that invested in my artistic talent, and she was able to see her son win. And I can take that with me forever. And it's the way I think I have honored and I will continue to honor my mom.
So, what were some of the principles that Mama Z imparted that you didn't love when they were happening? She probably chased you with a shoe at times, smacked you upside the head, things like that. But what were some of those things that now you're actually utilizing in your business and helped you to be able to sustain the blow up? Because there's the blow up that happens, but most people don't have a foundation, Des, like you do, to be able to sustain it and to be able to grow it forward. What were some of those lessons?
She was the strongest woman I ever knew. Like, coming here because her husband came to this country and then being left by him almost immediately and still staying and not giving up, not turning back, making it to working at Georgetown University Hospital, working the majority of her life. I mean, just resilience, like just the ability to not wallow in anything and just keep it moving. I mean, she had bipolar and she had her issues and never wallowed in it, never let that stop her, never let it, like we had to take the car away from her. Like when we had to chase her down on GPS because she was lost, we were like, okay, it's time, and she still fought us, and it was like, all right, man. But that same resilience, that same ability to just keep putting one foot in front of the other, man. I am grateful to have had an example like her. And one biggest lesson, at the time, I hated it, but she, because of her bipolar and because of her her anxiety, she didn't have that fortitude. She wasn't one of those moms that could hold me while I went through my first breakup or my first divorce or things like that. She couldn't help me through that emotionally. And I used to be so angry about that. Like, Mom, why can't you just hold me? Why is it always like, stop crying, think your way through this problem, and you got to keep moving and you got to keep stepping forward. And I know that came from a place where she really couldn't give that emotional investment. But at the end of the day, that's been one of the greater lessons is you don't cry. Like, bad things happen. That's the nature of life. Like, you're going to have, especially now at my age, you're going to have more goodbyes than hellos, and these things will happen. But don't cry, think, or at least don't wallow in it. Think your way out of it, work your way out of it, or move your way out of it. But one way or the other, you have to persevere. You have to keep going. And again, that's from one of the strongest women I've ever known in my life. And I'm grateful that she was my mom.
What about the having the street side as far as like you're doing custom shoes, you're doing the things? What was the difference when you started to work in the corporate side? What were some of the lessons that you had to learn? Because it's different. It's different from a guy saying, hey, I need to get a couple pairs of shoes. I love you, to a corporation that has you call an extension to prove that they're one of the largest in the world. And and then you have, I mean, we're talking Adidas, Under Armour, and then we're talking MLB, NBA, NFL, NHL. I mean, Des, like, tell us some of those like hard lessons that you learned. How'd you learn them?
Man, you gotta learn to shut up. Like, you gotta learn to shut up. Like, I wear my emotions right here, and I rarely bite my tongue. I rarely do. And with corporate, it's different. And you gotta learn, and you gotta know that you can't say everything you feel, and you can't talk to people the way they talk to you sometimes. Sometimes you gotta let it slide, and it's gotta be a conscious decision not to ruin your bread. And you have to be corporate with it. I'm blessed that I do have a corporate background. Like, funny enough, like I came from that. At one point in my life, I thought I was gonna be like the project director or something of something, because I spent some time in call centers and got promotions and things like that, but fortunately it didn't work out. Um, but I've learned that you have to really, really be on point with what you say. You have to choose your words carefully, and you have to over deliver and under promise, and you have to make that the basis of you have to make that the ground floor of how you build anything else. So if you tell them you'll have it on the 10th, try to have it on the 9th. And if you tell them you're going to do X, Y, Z, throw in A and B too, and just give it to them. And when you do that, the consistency that comes from that of callback, the fact that they're going to continue to utilize you because you've already built that relationship. That's the biggest thing, is relationship building. Like, there's, when you're in an individual client situation, A, it's a smaller amount of money, but B, like I'm a person like you're a person. If you treat me a certain way, I'm gonna treat you a certain way. If you don't treat me a certain way, I'll definitely not treat you a certain way. And that's usually the way I move. But with corporations, sometimes it's corporate and you can't take it personal. You have to understand that it's not personal, it's just corporate, it's just the way they move, and that's the end of the story. And you gotta just let it be. And so that's been the biggest lesson, is to just shut up sometimes. It's just open your ears, close your mouth, listen more, and be patient, and know that usually 9 times out of 10 it works out. It works out.
So take us back to London Fletcher, the brick with skin with brick, and then Steve Smith, and things start to go. What's the next lucky break or introduction? Because NFL is like a fraternity. Am I correct? Like, it's a small group of guys. Once you start to talk with one, then you gain the trust. Once you gain the trust, then you have to deliver. If you deliver consistently, a person, it'll create that type of relationship. From Steve, who was the next one?
It's very interesting. There's friendships that have been made. Like, Mohammed Sanu was our longest tenured client. His entire career, he got Customz from us, and he's a friend. He calls me on my birthday. I call him on his birthday. I text him. We've done personal projects for him even after his career has now ended for a little bit. And so there's relationships you build, but again, the NFL is not. It's a funny thing, man. You gotta, again, you sometimes you gotta just eat. They're gonna be more about their pockets than they are about their relationships for the most part. So we've lost a lot of business to kids in their mom's basement because their kids are charging $150 because they got no overhead and they got no rent and they got no family or mortgage or anything like that, and they're just trying to make money to go out on the weekend, and that's not to say these kids aren't talented, but these players are making a conscious choice to save their pennies and trust on a kid that may or may not come through, and that's on them. Like, I don't knock it. I get it. It's frugal. It makes sense. All right, and you can't be hurt by that, and that's why. Like the canvases in the background and the mural work, I've had to be diverse in order to succeed. But, Cam Newton, all right, so the next huge break, Thanksgiving, I forgot what year it was. We were in Laurel, so it's probably 11 years ago, 12 years ago. Thanksgiving game, Cam Newton, Carolina. We do the shoes for Thanksgiving night game, or the Thanksgiving afternoon game, where we got the Superman pose on one and the dab on the other. And the TV affiliate zooms in on the shoes and literally stays there for like, we talked about it. A 15-second commercial during Thanksgiving will cost you a few $100,000. They did it for us for free. They zoomed in and stayed there on the shoes and put them up on. We're at home. My buddy Mo and I, they were working together at the, and we're calling each other. We're going bananas. Number one, and see, it gets deeper, right? It wasn't just the fact they put our work up. They put the brand on the big screen for those 15 seconds. So now the brand loves us. And that's something that they didn't have to pay for. They just had to pay us for the custom. So once again, our work not only creates that hype for us, but it does what the brand wanted it to do in the first place. So any investment they made in us has been paid back tenfold in those 15 seconds that this shoe is just sitting on the screen. But for us, it was nuclear. Like that came up and that made its rounds. And then, and I tell you what, Nice Kicks for a while, Nice Kicks, they were doing the top 10 every week. And Mo and I were in the top 10 week after week after week. So they would get us. So early on, man, there were all these different avenues that would hype you, that would help you build. But also, Kelly, you got to remember, man, when I started, there were maybe 50, 60 customizers in the U.S., right? And it was a different animal back then, right? Because you would pick your art. It was funny because if you go back to the post 100 years ago, right, you would see little tags like Team Picasso, Team Mosh, Team DEZ Customz. Everybody had their followers, and their followers would repost with the hashtags or with the team tags and stuff. And it was beautiful because you went to this guy because he did this. You went to this guy, you picked your killer because of the weapons that he had. You didn't just go, it wasn't where they would say, hey, I saw this and I want you to do this for me, even though that guy already did it. It was a different era where everybody was coming up with their own ideas and they were picking their fighter. They were picking their killer to go execute it, and it was a wondrous time. And now it's different, man. It's a different era. Now you get this era where being the same is being cool. And so somebody sees something that somebody did and everybody wants that same thing. And it's unfortunate, man, because I remember the days where you would get selected almost like people were picking their favorite player on a game. You know what I mean? And it was so much fun to be selected because the way they would approach you was even different. Be like, yo, I love these, and these that you did. I have this idea that I want you to execute, and it would be the grandest feeling. Where now, when you get approaches, I saw these, can you do these? And it's like, but somebody already did that. Why do you want a customizer to do that when it's already been done? Like, you're defeating the word in itself. And so it's a different era. And you got to go with the flow, but we try to still take on only projects that are going to allow us to showcase what it is that we do. And it's got to be unique. That's the criteria. And I've turned away work all the time. Number one, if they're trying to get a cheaper price, I'm not the one to call. But number two, if I see that it's been done too many times or even 2 or 3 times, I'm not going to do it. And if it really doesn't excite me, I'm probably not going to do it. And I'm in a place where, I have feelers out and I have contracts pending for murals and canvases and stuff like that where I don't have to accept I want to. I want to be challenged every day. I want to challenge my teammates every day, Swaggy and Fernando. I want to challenge them every day with something new. When Mo comes back into the fold, I want to challenge him. But if we're not challenged, we're not going to take it. Because if it's not challenging, there's no joy in it. And I never meant to do this without joy. That was never the purpose for it.
What has been the power for you of being able to say no? What have you seen it do for your business? Because most people are scared to say it. And what I can tell young entrepreneurs or young people in their business, Say yes all the time. say yes until you get to a point where you, like a DEZ, where you can say no. But when you can, DEZ, what can it do for your business?
It's amazing. It's amazing because a lot of times people are testing the water. So it again, levels, right? Initial level is sometimes they're just testing you to see how cheap they can get your work. They really want your work, but they're just trying to test you on how cheap they can get it. And if you say no enough, they're going to understand that it's better for them to come out of pocket than to go somewhere else. It's just better. And you're going to get your price. And then what? So that's one aspect. Two, you don't want to open up as Walmart. You want to open up as Versace. So I say that to say, if you underprice yourself, it's harder to raise your price on a client than it is to keep the same price once you've established the client. So once you establish the $125 client, it's going to be hard to tell them, oh yeah, it's $250 now. They're going to be like, no. But if you start at $250, it's easy to go to $260, $270. That's easy. But if you start too low, you're going to stay low. You're going to stay at Walmart the rest of your life. You're going to be the discount guy and you're going to get overworked. That's the thing. Like in 12 years, right? There were kids that used to come to me all the time. Like my following is old followers, right? Some of them aren't even active anymore on Instagram. Like people are like, why don't you get more engagement? Well, because my followers now have kids and wives, and they were single when we started out. You know what I mean? They don't have time for this anymore. But they, you got to grow up. And if you start at 125 in your mom's basement, when you get an apartment and a girlfriend and you can't take her out and you can't pay your rent, or you don't got a TV or electricity or cable or internet, you're going to have a hard time making it because you started at 125 and you're still at 125 5 years later. It doesn't work. It never works out. The other aspect of it is, now I started somewhere. We all start somewhere. You have to get your name out. Social media is too good nowadays to be selling yourself cheap. Get a job versus doing cheap work. Do that. I did that. Get a job. If your first painting sells for $10,000 and you work at Walmart, they don't know that. They just know you're the artist that sold a $10,000 painting. Now you set a bar for your art that nobody can challenge. But if you quit your job at Walmart because you want to paint full time and you sell your first painting for $800, it's going to be really hard to sell the next one for $10,000. Get a job. Get a job so you get the power of no. And then build your, man, I got paintings, bro, I gave you the little tour. I got 10, 12 paintings here. I got another 10 upstairs. I got one over there I didn't show you. I got 12, 20 at home. So there's no, like, look. I got that whole wall. It goes that way. It comes this way. Like, there's so much stuff that I don't ever, hopefully I can reset it myself, but that I don't ever, and I'm fine. I'm fine with people going, hey, I'll buy that for $500. No, you won't. Not today, not tomorrow, not next week. So, but again, if I do that though, I know I got to go do a mural. I know I got to go do a car, a motorcycle, 10 t-shirts, whatever I got to do, I got to make up. And it's the equivalent of go to work at Walmart, go to work over there, pay your bills. Don't sell your passion. Don't price tag your passion low. Price tag listen, going to work, having a job respectfully. I respect everybody that works a 9 to 5. I couldn't, so I respect the hell out of it. But don't underprice your passion. Don't do that because it'll be so hard to reprice it and rebrand yourself later. Get a job, get a real job, and do this. And then I have a buddy, Levi, the paintings I showed you over there, he does just that. He's got a great paying government gig. And when he paints, he sells his paintings nice though. Because he don't have to worry about it. His job gives him what he needs to live. He lives well. His paintings are he doesn't underprice his passion, and I respect the hell out of that. And that's what you got to do, man. You have to do what you have to do until you can do what you want to do. But the power of no is incredible. Is incredible because what it does is it states your value, and your people will find you. It might take 36 years. 36 years. I was winning awards in elementary school, middle school, and high school. I was winning art awards. I graduated at 18, and it took double that lifetime to fulfill my dream. So don't tell me about waiting. Don't tell me about patience. Don't talk to me about any of that. I'm the poster child for waiting and for working your ass off while you're waiting. So don't come to me with that. No is a wonderful thing. It's a beautiful thing when you can do it. And what gives you the power to do it is safety. And what gives you safety? Money. And what makes you money? Do what you got to do. Do what you have to do.
One of my buddies named Tim Story, Des, and I don't know if you know of him, but he's one of the top motivational speakers in the world. And he pulled me aside and I asked him a couple questions. And I said, who do you go and watch, like, to get inspiration? I thought he watched speakers, and he said, Kelly, he pulled me close and he said, I don't watch any speakers. And I said, why? And he said, because they'll rub off on me. And he said, the only speakers that I'll speak or that I'll watch are people outside of my realm, maybe comedians or whatever it is, so I can understand timing, so I can see those things. But I never want them to rub off on me because I don't want to become a carbon copy of somebody. Talk to me about that in the art world, because it could be so easy for you to be around other artists, which, is great for your soul. But how do you keep DEZ's style when there are so many things? Do you consciously stay away from other artists' work because you don't want it to rub off?
Inspiration, it's a fine line, right? There's inspiration. Levi's artwork inspires me, but I know that that's not what I want to do. But it inspires me. The idea of what he's doing, right? So some of the paintings that I showed you were a reimagination of what if a black man back in the day could have been a lawyer or a justice. And that's the one painting with the guy with the white hair, right? And that reimagination inspired me in my own style to start a series of what I call, I don't want to share too much, but it's like stolen glory, which is, Hispanics get a bad rap these days because of the political scene and the rhetoric that's been getting thrown around. But these, from my experience, from what I've seen, living in the culture, it's just the hardest working people in the world. Mm-hmm. I mean, these are people that walk up and down ladders with concrete, with tiles, with roofing panels, like it's nothing, in the blazing hot sun. And they didn't steal anybody's job. They did the job because they grew up doing that job. They've mastered that job from 13 years old. You're not going to tell him how to do it better than he knows how to do it. That's the way he fed his family at 13. All right, I'm getting loose, but anyways. I've been inspired to do a series where I present these people, these workers, these landscapers, these roofers, these plumbers, these mechanics in more regal settings, still doing the job they do, but but I'm going to do it in my style. Mm. So inspiration is a wonderful thing, but I understand that the thing is I'm an old dog. I've learned, it's taken me a lifetime to learn the tricks that I know. I'm always exploring new things, but I'm not going in a new direction. My ideas will always be delivered in the direction that I can deliver them. I might pick up a new tool. I might learn a different augmentation to something, but I'm never going to change the way I paint. I tell everybody the value in my art, I don't work in oil, I work in acrylic. Why? Because oil takes too long to dry. And my work is very passionate, and I don't know anyone that can stay passionate about the exact same instant of emotion for that long of a time. So mine are like a Polaroid. Mine are like the Polaroids that you keep, the one that you go, oh my God, I love this instant in time that I was able to capture. I'm keeping this Polaroid. And they're not for everybody. but they're that moment in time and what I was feeling in that moment in time. And so if you like it, you like it. If it speaks to you, it speaks to you. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm not going to be mad at you, but I'm not going to change what I do. I can't work in oil because the thing that I'm passionate for the next 24 hours is not the thing I'll be passionate in 72 hours. And I can't do that. And I'm not going to deliver what doesn't come. And that's why my work looks the way it looks. That's why it looks like it's done in a frenzied manner, in a crazy manner. It's because it is delivered in that manner, because I need to get it out. I need to release it before it goes away. I need to have that moment happen, and I need to capture that moment. And I don't want to not do that moment justice. I don't want to have that moment slip away where I didn't give it what my all. So I have to work in acrylic because acrylic works faster. So I understand it. I understand it. And I learn from others, but they don't. I guess because of where I'm at and I know my lane, I'm very comfortable in my lane. I don't want to be anybody else. But here's the other example, right? And here's what scares me. So Basquiat passed away, and all of a sudden everybody was painting like Basquiat. You see all these Basquiat-inspired paintings come out, right? And to me, I'm like, where is your story in that style? Where are you in that style? Yeah, you did it inspired by him, but you almost mimicked him. You could have put a little detail, but what you did is you try to reproduce something that's not you. And I don't know, but I want all of my pieces to be authentically me, not, even if it's inspired by someone else, like I just talked about, it's authentically me, and I'm happy where I'm at. And listen, here's the kicker, right? If, let's say I live another 20 years, God bless, right? I'll be 68 years old. I'll have maybe 150 paintings that I could pass down to my kids. I will have been spoken about enough in the circles that I'm respected in, that somebody will be like, this man was talented. And those paintings will have an exceptional amount of value. And I'm okay with that. I'm all right with that. I don't need to be rich today if my kids can be rich in 30 years. I want my work to be legacy work, not momentary work. That's why you won't see the Donald Ducks and I'm sure you've seen that artwork and the Bugs Bunnies and the stuff like that. I'm not going to do that because while, yeah, it's a timepiece and it's not me. And it wouldn't be authentically me if I did it. So, yeah.
So talk to me too about one of the posts that you just recently did. I'm a Biggie fan, as a lot of the listeners are. There's a statue of him. You can't see it completely, but the little black statue right next to it, the black art right next to it, is Biggie. I'm going to go to the wide shot so you can see it. This is this up here on my, let's see, right there. If you're just listening, you can't see it, but it's called the blackout version of Biggie, and it's by Concrete Jungle. There's only 500 pieces made of him, of this one. Then I got a Redman one too, and I love the dude's artwork. I don't know if you've seen him, but when you did the one of Biggie, for me, it had a bunch of different meaning. Number one, it was Biggie. Number two, it was on a Jordan 3. Do you run into challenges because you're, like you talked about earlier, where you're using a Nike shoe? Do you have to go through legal things like that to be able to do it? Or are you able to use that as a canvas because you own the shoe?
So this is where having experience kicks in, right? I don't buy the shoe to paint the shoe to deliver to the client. That's a dangerous area. Legally, you're buying a shoe to manipulate the shoe to sell. You're reselling not only the art, but the shoe after you've altered it. That's a dangerous ground right there. Clients provide the canvas. I provide the artwork. I'm billing a client for art only. I'm not billing a client for a manipulation of a Nike product. That's not what I do. I'm an artist. Whatever canvas they give me, it could be a garbage can, it could be a table, a chair, a toilet. I don't care. All I'm doing is art. That's it. Whatever the customer decided to use as a canvas, sue them. But you can't. because they own it, and whatever they do, they can scrape it, scratch it, write it, whatever. That's their property. You can't. But you can't sue me either, because I didn't buy the shoe to resell the shoe. I didn't alter the shoe and make it it infringe on Nike property. Nope.
So with that particular one, like I said, I just saw it Instagram. It was recently in the last maybe month or two or somewhere around there. Does the person come to you and say, "Hey, this is what I want," or do most people now? I mean, I wouldn't ever, like, having the opportunity to work with you, I would never tell you what I wanted. I would want what you saw, because, like, I can't see the type of art. Is that the type of guest or client that you generally work with, or is there, advantages to both sides?
My corporate clients can send me idea boards that I will acknowledge and come close to as best as possible. My private clients, fortunately, for the most part, don't do that. They understand that. So I tell everybody like this, right? I'm not going to walk over there, get behind the mic, try to do the scheduling, try to do the questioning, try to do this. I'm not going to do your job better than you do your job. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go anywhere near it. I'm not going to go into an accountant's office and go, you know what? I'm going to do the books today. Gotcha. No, because it's going to be really bad for everybody. I tell people, don't come into my office and do my job for me, because you're not going to do it like I'm going to do it. And then, just like any employee, you're not going to hire a plumber to build a space rocket. That's not what you do. So if you came to me for what I do, but you want me to do what you do, that doesn't make any sense. So you're going to get your best, and I tell people this all the time, you're going to get the best of me when you allow me to do my best work. And isn't that what you want? Because if it's not what you want, then I'm not your guy. And again, that's the no. I'm not. Don't come to me with a pre-designed sketch, because I'm probably going to say no. No, we're not going to do that. And thank you, but I know a couple of artists that you can take a sketch to, and I'm happy to give the business away. I do that all the time. But no, normally the way it works is I have these threes, I want Biggie, go. And I'm going to deliver that for you. There was no mention of the Brooklyn Bridge, that's on one side. There's no mention of the Statue of Liberty. There's no mention of the wording and the graffiti style letters within the letters and all that. There's no mention of any of that from the client. That all came from what we delivered. And we delivered that because they let us deliver that. They didn't go, hey, give me all of it. No, don't do that. Because here's the other part. You don't do this for a living. And if I design what you want, it's probably going to look like poop, because you don't do it for a living. So don't do that. You want me to come decorate your bathroom? I don't know who you are. You don't want that. But you do want me to do the shoes, because that's what I do. So let me do what I do.
Now, because there's going to be a ton of people afterwards. Now, this is not like, if you're having a 5-year-old's birthday party and you wanted to get some shoes for your 5-year-old, DEZ is not your guy. DEZ works at the depending on your birthday party.
Right. And we do, but look, and I'm going to spill the beans right now, and this might be the worst business decision I ever make, but we don't charge people for shoes for kids under 2 years old. I don't make that publicly on my page, and it's the first time I've said it on any broadcast. So anybody watching this, they're going to benefit if they got a kid under. We don't charge for that. I've never charged anyone for a shoe. They can tip me if they want, but I'm not going to charge you for that. It's too small. There's only so much I can do, and I'm not going to do that because it's probably a special moment, and you're probably going to keep those somewhere safe for the rest of your life.
Wow.
And I want to be a part of that journey, so I'm not going to charge you for that. You know what else I don't charge for? The helmets that the kids have to wear when their heads are a little weird.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I do those for free. I don't charge for those. If you bring me one of those, your kid's already going through something, He's already got to wear this weird thing that makes him look a little funny. If I can make it look cool, I'm not going to charge you for that. You can tip me for it. I'm not going to charge you. You won't see a bill from me. You're going to pay for shipping. I'm not going to do that. I'm not crazy. But yeah. But see, that's the stuff that I do that a lot of people don't know that I do, and I don't make it a big deal. But yeah, if you got a 5-year-old and you want blah, I'm gonna charge you for it because this is how I make a living. That's the other thing. Don't get it twisted. I have a grandson, a 15-year-old, a 27-year-old, a 29-year-old, a wife. My mom just passed. I'm still paying her funeral costs. My brother stays with me because that's how it has to be sometimes. And we got bills all day long. I got to feed all these people. Like, what? This doesn't go to a glamorous life. I don't have a glamorous life. I made a conscious decision not to have a glamorous life so that I can follow my passion, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. But but I still do stuff. Like I said, those helmets I do for free. I've been doing murals in my son's school. I don't charge them. They're paying for materials. I don't charge them. Why? Because I want to leave it better than we found it. My daughters went there. My son is going there. And I want to leave a legacy where kids can look back and go, that Zambrano family, man, they left this place beautiful. And they didn't have to do that.
Wow. How can a person, get in touch and be able to work with you?
I mean, at DEZ Customz on Instagram, and if you hit contact, that's my phone number. That goes right to my cell. You're not going anywhere. You're not talking to a recording. You're talking to me. And I'm, no matter what has been said today, man, I'm so grateful for this life, man. This is, look, a kid raised by a single mom with a dad that wasn't too caring would have never pictured being here, ever, 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 ever. So this has been the most amazing journey that I could have ever imagined, not fulfilled, imagined. Meeting NFL players, meeting NHL players, meeting this and that. Man, that's so far beyond the dream. My dream was just paint and make money enough to live. And I did that starting 12 years ago. All this other stuff is extra. Being here right now, this is extra. This life is more than I could have ever asked for. And I'm never going to cheat that. And I'm always going to be grateful for it.
As your youngest is 15, you said?
Yes.
Okay. So your youngest at 15 has only had 3 years of their life where dad wasn't doing exactly what he was passionate about doing exactly and getting paid for it like you talked about. So, how do you help? This is a conversation with my buddy, Will. He's an artist too. So I want you to give him a shout out here in a second. He's doing great things because he works for the government, but he paints on the side, and he's doing what you just talked about. He's actually doing, but it's an encouragement. And I want to tell you how much it means to me that you talk that way. But him and I were having a conversation yesterday, and we were talking about the grit, the resilience that you got, right? From you're a single mom, dad not being there is emotionally, you riding the red line, you seeing inspiration, you going back and forth. You have to go through all these things. That creates that grit, that resilience, all those things. How do you manufacture that for the 15-year-old who's had 12 years of watching Pops, do exactly what he loved? Most likely hears that you love him, that you're lifting him up, and in an environment where maybe he's not having to go through the things that you did. How do you manufacture that grit and that resilience, or is it possible?
It's hard, man, because like you said, he doesn't go through it. And sometimes, so unfortunately, I try to fix my young L's through him, and I shouldn't. But I was that kid that was envious of kids that had both parents in the home. I was the kid that envied the kids that wore brand names to school. So I've made sure that my son has never had that, ever. And to a fault, like I shouldn't have done it all, but I did. But I have the hard conversations with him. I've cried with my son because I have a past. I have a felony on my record. I've made very, very dumb decisions in my life. I've gone through errors. And I tell my son, man, this person you see in front of you is a person that battles demons every single day. My wife said the most amazing thing to me the other day. She said, I love you, not just because you protect us from everything outside, but you protect us from the demons inside you. And because she knows what I struggle with, and she knows all the things I struggle with. And she knows, and I let my son know these things because he has to know, that this is far from a polished product, but it's a lot less jagged than the product that should be there. And it's come through a lot of work, but it's still a lot of work needed, and there's a lot of pain involved. And I need him to understand it. Now, I need him, like I tell him honestly, that there's times where, like, you know, my son over dramatizes stuff. And I'm like, son, listen, man, I love you and I respect your feelings, but you don't get to act like the kid that doesn't have a father that loves you. You know, you don't get to do that, because if there's one thing you know is that I love you more than anything in the world. So you don't get to act like the kid that doesn't have a father that loves you. And he knows it and he understands it. And we have to have hard talks sometimes, but they're good for the most part. And he understands. And I got a good one. He's got a great heart. His heart comes from his mama, and his smart ass mouth comes from me, which is unfortunate because I'm like, God, you could have skipped that part. Like, I told you, give me me, but you could have skipped that part. But you know, it's not easy. But I try to tell him that it's hard out here, and I show him sometimes. I bring him to work, and I make him do the stuff that nobody else here wants to do, and I tell him, you know, this is the hard stuff, but you got to take the joy, man. You got to find the joy in the hard stuff, because how do you know when it's good? Like, if everything is good, how do you know good? How do you know joy if every day is joy? Nah, man, you got to know. You got to know the bitter. You got to know the sad. You got to know the hurt in order to really celebrate the joy, or else you
Des, talk to the young Hispanic kids out there. When I say this, you know, I don't know if you know, but my pops was Mexican. I'm a halfie, and but I think there's a lot of times where just having permission can change things. I was very fortunate because both my parents gave me permission just to try stuff, like permission to try. But a lot of times in the Hispanic community, what I find is you get permission to work hard, right? But sometimes you don't get the permission to actually enjoy the fruits of your labor, because you've just been told to stick your head down, continue to work, and basically just don't look up. You just got to keep working. What message would you send to those young Hispanic kids out there that understand the work ethic part, but need the permission to be able to move through to another place?
That's a great, because I was taught that, man. I didn't believe in anxiety. I didn't believe in it until 3 years ago, when I had an anxiety attack. I thought I was having a heart attack. I went to the hospital, and they were like, "There's nothing wrong with you, dude. Like, I don't know." And the doc literally was like, "This is not my area of expertise. I don't know, man. Try some weed or something. I don't know. You're fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with you." And don't get it twisted. Like, he looked at the chart. He's like, I'm a big guy. He looked at the chart and he kept flipping the pages. Like, he wanted something to be wrong with me. He was like, "There's nothing wrong with it." And he kept looking, and I was like, "Stop looking, bro." Like, but so I get it, right? I get it, because it's like, man, you're sad, go to work, you feel better. Oh, you're broke, go to work, you'll make money. Oh, your girl left you, go to work, you'll find a better one. You know, like, you know, you have to, man, listen, without joy, life is hard enough. Life is already going to be hard. Like, you know, we're born, and people forget this part. That's it. Like, you're born and then you're on the way to the end. It's just a countdown. So what are you going to do with that countdown? You're going to be miserable? You're just going to be systematic until somebody lets you be happy? You're just going to be employed until you're allowed to be happy? No, come on, man. You got to treat it like a countdown. That don't mean get anxious about it, like, oh, the end is near. No, but like, pause every day. Pause. Take purposefully. If it's in the morning, pause. If it's pause. If it's in the afternoon, in the evening, whatever, pause. Take a moment and find one thing to be like, this is great. This is great. If it's a drink, it's great. If it's your burger, it's great. Your taco, la salteña, la empanada, whatever. Find that moment in your day where something genuine, not, don't drink yourself and be like, this is great. No, something genuine is great. And for me, I'm fortunate because, my son will do something funny and I'll be like, that's great. My wife will say something like she said the other night, and I'm like, you're amazing. My daughter will come to me and I'll solve a problem for her, and I'll be like, man, that felt good, or something to that effect. But the other side is find someone. This is super important, and on the mental health side. But it's just like that, right? Because if you work with no joy, you're not going to have a lot of good mental health. Find someone, a mentor, a peer, someone that literally you can pour into and that pours into you. Because that's another thing, the support system. If you don't got it, it's even harder. And sometimes it's not going to be your parents, and it's not going to be your aunt, your uncle, or a family member. It's going to be someone that you bond with, but someone that you can, take a moment and just, and find that joy, and they'll help you find the joy. More than likely, if they're what they're supposed to be, they're gonna lead you to it. Because I've had friends be like, "What are you talking about, bro? You just blah blah blah," and I'm like, "Yeah, I did just do that, right? Like, I'm tripping," and then you're fine. But find the joy. Don't, because again, you're gonna blink, man. I'm telling you. I was playing football 10 minutes ago for my high school, and it's not. It's not. And I was married, my first marriage, 2 years ago, and it's not. It's 29 years ago. And it's, and I was running these streets 5 minutes ago, and it's not. It's it's 20 plus years ago. And you're going to blink, and it's going to be done. And what you don't want is, you don't want to go, hey, man, I had a great life at work. Like, no, man, you can't do that. You're not going to be happy with that result. You're not going to be happy with that result. You want to find those moments that you could tell stories about. Create stories. There you go. Pick a moment in a day and create a story, and then try to shape your life around that story. And then next thing you know, you'll have a great story at the end.
Des, you're living in the crazy. If I would have told you, when you had the shirt on, I could see it now. When you had the shirt on and you had done it with the marker and it's bleeding down your back and you're sad as a kid, your mom's encouraging you, past that and to push the airbrush in your hand. If I would have told you that was going to turn into what you're living now, you would have told me I was crazy. So we can agree that you're living in the crazy. When the crazy becomes the normal, what's the next crazy for Des? Like, what would be crazy for you now? Because if I said, like, having NFL players call you to, experience your work, that's not crazy anymore. MLB, not crazy anymore. NBA, not crazy. NHL, Adidas, Under Armour, not crazy anymore. What is?
This is a goal, but it seems unreachable to me. But I'm trying to speak it into existence, but it's hard, right? But I want to do $100,000 piece of artwork. Like, that's my next crazy for me. Is the day I get to cash that check and it says art on whatever it is. I've gotten up there, like, there's been a couple $20,000, $30,000 murals and stuff like that. But I want to cash $100,000 check for a single piece of art. That's what I want. Because honestly, what's funny, man? And maybe I'm getting old, right? But honestly, man, what I think would be crazy is calm. like if my life would calm down a little bit, that would be crazy. And again, I got to make a living, and I get it. And I chose this life, but see, I guess they go hand in hand, right? Because if I could start cashing those type of checks, and maybe working like 2-3 months for that, and spend the rest of my year pouring into my son, my grandson, my wife, my daughters, my home, my gallery, that would be crazy. That would be crazy if I could have more time, because I do that $100,000, $150,000 job. That would be pretty crazy. That would be pretty dope. I think that would be, at that point, man. I'm good. I'm done. This check. My list is. I'm done.
You better get ready, because I really want to speak some life to you. I believe by the end of 2025, that is going to happen. It's not only going to happen once; it's going to happen multiple times. Then when we have the next episode, then we'll be talking about that, and you're gonna be laughing about it, and then I'm gonna ask you again, and we're gonna have to push it to 500,000 to 1 million. And Des, I just it's incredible. I started the podcast because I wanted to take iconic people like yourself and help my kids to not worship idols. Like, my son's a big sneakerhead too, and when I say that, he's into sneakers that his dad and mom buys him that he shouldn't be having. This is what I can say.
Right there, bro. Right there.
There's a difference. A sneakerhead is like, you cannot buy the sneaker, you don't have the money, and you put it on your wall and you wish. And 5, 6, 10, 18 years later, you get that pair of shoes. That's a sneakerhead to me, right?
Yes.
Mom and dad don't have the money, but sacrifice to be able to get them bad boys up there, like next to the Michael Jackson doll, right? You know what I mean? So I didn't want my kids to worship idols. I just wanted them to be inspired by icons like yourself. So what advice would you have for Maddox and McKenna? Maddox is 12 years old, loves sneakers that he shouldn't have. McKenna, he's in sports too. He plays quarterback, plays football, baseball. I mean, he's a sports guy. And then my daughter is in the arts, so she is singing, dancing, acting. That side. She's 15 years old. What advice would you have for Maddox and McKenna? And if you could use both their names, it would be awesome.
Maddox and McKenna, I'll tell you what. Never, ever, ever underestimate your passion and what it can do in your life. Never. Because you're inside of this old man is this 12-year-old kid that dreamed that wrote on every single piece of question that was ever asked to him, what do you want to be when you grow up? Artist. And everyone told him, you gotta make sense. You gotta be realistic. You have to understand that there's no life in that there's no possibility in that. And that little kid lives inside this old man, and he gets to say, I told you so. And never, ever find something that you're passionate about that's positive, and never let it go. And water it every day, and know that it may not grow for 36 years, maybe even longer, but when it does, it's going to be the happiest days of your life. And take that from this old kid talking to you.
Des, it's incredible, because we started off with humility. You got on and you had a flat tire today, right? And so you got on and instantly you were like, hey man, I apologize. I was like, you don't have to apologize, dude. I've been waiting for 3.5 years to be able to have a conversation. You know what I mean? Like, a flat tire don't do me anything. You started off with humility. You end with humility, man. I know that comes from Mama Z. I know that part, and I could feel her. If she was here with us right now, what would you say to her?
Oh, man, look at you, dog. You trying to do that whole Jerry Maguire end of the interview thing, bro. Come on, dog. Man, I would just thank her one last time for being the first person that saw it. Because she saw it before anybody else did. And she believed it before anybody else did. Even me. Like, I dreamed about it, but I didn't believe it. I would just thank her for unyieldingly loving me and giving me the strength to do it.
Des, you're a great man. You're a great man, an inspiration. And I tell you, like, my buddy Will, he's my best friend since I was in 4th grade. And he started hitting canvases probably about 4 or 5 years ago. And, you know, he's in his garage, he's doing his thing, he's progressing as an artist, things like that. But I cannot wait for him to hear you and to experience you. And, you know, it's an honor, man. I mean, literally, like, for those of you guys listening, this is 3.5 years in the making. Like, this isn't, this is not me having my agent reach out to Dez's agent. This is me reaching out on Instagram multiple times. I believe I possibly sent you a video too. I'm saying, like, these kind of conversations for me are not, oh, wow, have my people talk to your, no, I'm saying, I've wanted to talk to this man that you guys have got to experience today. I've got a chance to be able to talk to him. And I have wanted this for 3.5 years. It's been worth every second. It was worth every second of the wait for the 3.5 years. But I tell you, man, you are an unbelievable human being and an inspiration to all of us, man.
Thank you. I appreciate you. One last thing. I'm going to be making this information public pretty soon, but I'm working with a nonprofit that's helping me to gain my nonprofit status. I do this thing called Brunch with Brothers, where kids from the Maryland area, high school age, a little bit older, I bring them here to the gallery, and we just talk, because I think pouring into young men is incredibly important. And I would just ask that please, number one, follow me if you don't. Number two, if you already do, be on the lookout, because your donations will be tax deductible, and it will be for a worthy cause. And there's been, I've posted about it before, and basically it's simply to lend a better path and to try to just help out. So I just want to leave with that. And Kelly, thank you, bro, because you have been persistent, and my life is insane, and I'm thankful for your persistence. I'm grateful to be here. I'm thankful for this platform, and I'm grateful for this opportunity, man. And I've been excited about it too. And I was like, this tire's not going to stop me today. And as soon as I got in, I checked in, brother, and I thank you for your patience.
Hey, you're incredible, and you can't get rid of me. I'm going to be your friend for the rest of your life. I'm going to force that upon you. And there's some people that I want you to meet too. Happy Life Wood. He's out there listening. If you haven't experienced him, this guy, he's on your coast. He's an artist, but he works with all wood. You know who he is?
No.
Oh, dude, you have to see his. You have to see his stuff. I'm gonna send it to you. Those of you listening, if you have not experienced Happy Life Wood too, this guy is unbelievable. But I could see a DEZ Customz Happy Life Wood collaboration. Wait till you see his work. His work is unbelievable. Your work at the top of the food chain, and literally, like, I believe I have the best job in the world, because I get a chance to be able to talk to the best on the planet, man.
Hey, man, don't tease me with a good time, brother. I'm down. You tell me collab and art, all you just said was good and good. Like, I'm ready. Good.
Well, I love you, man. Stay. I'm gonna run a outro commercial. Stay on for a second with me. But I want to thank you so much. Those of you who haven't checked out the High Fives Foundation, check that out. My boy Roy Tuscany's phenomenal. It's my honor, my pleasure. My smile is back on my face, because Des, I haven't got to do a podcast in 30 days, and I felt like a fiend out there scratching in the street saying, "I'll give you a cheeseburger if I could just do a podcast."
Happy to give you your fix, brother.
Love you. Love you, man. You're officially off the hot seat, bro.
achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting.